The bathroom door slammed behind Eliza as rough hands shoved her against the cold tile wall. 3 girls from her English class surrounded her, their laughter echoing against the stalls. "What's in your precious backpack today, weirdo?" Mackenzie, the ringleader, yanked the worn canvas bag from Eliza's shoulders. Books tumbled onto the bathroom floor, dog-eared paperbacks with creased spines and highlighted passages. "Please," Eliza whispered, reaching for her copy of The Bell Jar. "Those are mine." Madison, Mackenzie's second-in-command, snatched the book first. "So dramatic. No one reads this old stuff anymore." She flipped through the pages, tearing several before tossing it into an open toilet stall. The others followed suit, each of Eliza's beloved books landing with a sickening splash. "Maybe now you'll learn to be normal," Mackenzie sneered as they left, high-fiving each other in the hallway. Alone in the bathroom, Eliza knelt beside the toilet, fishing out her sodden books. Tears mixed with toilet water as she tried to salvage the warped pages. These weren't just books. They were her escape, her only friends in a school where she'd never belonged. The bell rang, signaling the start of 5th period, but Eliza couldn't move. Her hands trembled as she gathered the wet mass of paper, ink bleeding through her fingers like watercolor wounds. She'd saved for months to buy these books, working weekends at her aunt's flower shop, choosing them over new clothes or lunch money. When the bathroom door creaked open, Eliza quickly wiped her face with her sleeve, stuffing the dripping books into her bag. Miss Chen, her literature teacher, stood in the doorway, concern etching lines around her eyes. "Eliza, are you?" Her question halted when she noticed the puddles on the floor, the streaks of ink on Eliza's hands. "Oh, sweetheart, what happened?" Eliza shook her head, unable to form words. The shame of being targeted, of being different, burned hotter than any anger. Admitting it meant acknowledging her place at the bottom of the social hierarchy, the quiet girl who preferred fictional worlds to real ones. Ms. Chun didn't push. Instead, she helped Eliza gather the remaining soggy pages, her silence a kindness that nearly broke Eliza's carefully constructed walls. "They just don't understand," Eliza finally whispered, cradling what remained of Frankenstein against her chest. "These books, they're the only place I feel seen." That night, Eliza spread her damaged books across her bedroom floor, attempting to salvage what she could. Her mother had noticed her red-rimmed eyes at dinner but didn't pry. They had an unspoken agreement about school troubles. Ever since her father left 3 years ago, they'd both learned to carry their pain quietly. The pages of The Bell Jar had mostly survived, though warped and stained. Frankenstein was worse, entire chapters rendered illegible. But it was her copy of Jane Eyre, a birthday gift from her grandmother before she passed, that hurt the most to lose. The binding had completely separated. The ink dissolved into murky puddles. Eliza opened her journal and began to write, not about her day or her feelings, but about a girl named Alice who discovered she could step inside books and live among their characters. In Alice's world, bullies couldn't follow, and the friends she made understood her completely. The words flowed faster than her pen could capture them, spilling onto 3, then 5, then 12 pages before she finally looked up at her clock. 2:17 a.m. The next morning, Eliza walked to school with her hood pulled low, taking the long route to avoid Mackenzie's usual corner. She slipped into homeroom just as the bell rang, keeping her gaze fixed on her desk. When lunch period arrived, instead of braving the cafeteria, she headed for the library, her sanctuary since freshman year. Mrs. Patel, the librarian, nodded at her usual spot by the window. "I set aside something you might like," she said, sliding a worn paperback across the desk. "It reminded me of you." The book was I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith. Eliza ran her fingers over the cover, something loosening in her chest for the first time in days. "Thank you," she whispered, clutching it like a talisman. The library became her fortress over the following weeks. She stopped bringing her own books to school, too risky, but devoured everything Mrs. Patel recommended. And each night, she continued Alice's story, the pages multiplying until she had to start a new notebook. In her story, Alice not only visited her favorite books but began changing their endings, rescuing characters doomed to tragedy, giving voice to those left silent. It was power Eliza had never felt in her real life, the ability to reshape worlds, to control outcomes, to matter. When Ms. Chun assigned a creative writing project, Eliza hesitated before submitting the first chapter of Alice's adventures. She'd never shared her writing before. It felt too personal, too revealing. But something about losing her books had ignited a quiet defiance. If they could take her physical books, they couldn't take the stories growing inside her. 3 days later, Ms. Chun asked her to stay after class. Eliza's stomach clenched, certain she'd done something wrong, broken some unwritten rule about proper academic writing. Instead, Ms. Chun said, "I couldn't stop reading it. Your voice? It's extraordinary." Extraordinary. Eliza repeated, the word foreign on her tongue. No one had ever described anything about her that way. "Yes," Ms. Chun insisted, sliding Eliza's paper across the desk. Red ink covered the margins, not with corrections but with questions, observations, and encouragements. "This character, Alice? She's you, isn't she?" Eliza stared at her sneakers. "Sort of. She's braver than me." "I think you're braver than you know." Ms. Chun opened her desk drawer and pulled out a flyer. "The Westridge Literary Foundation is hosting a Young Writers Workshop this summer. I'd like to nominate you for a scholarship." That flyer became Eliza's North Star. For the next 3 months, she poured herself into expanding Alice's story, no longer writing just for herself but with purpose. The bathroom incident faded from immediate pain to useful material. The bullies became characters she could control, reshape, understand. On the first day of the workshop, Eliza clutched her manuscript pages to her chest, heart hammering as she entered the university building. 20 other students, all seemingly confident and polished, chatted in small groups. She found a seat in the back corner, wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake. First time, a boy with thick glasses and a Star Wars t-shirt dropped into the seat beside her. "I'm Marcus. This is my second year." Before she could answer, the workshop leader, author Imani Jackson, strode into the room. "Welcome, young writers. We have 6 weeks together, and in that time I expect blood on the page." Not literally, though I've seen that too. Her laugh was warm, inviting everyone into the joke. Writing isn't just about talent. It's about courage. The courage to tell the truth, even in fiction. Each day of the workshop peeled back another layer of Eliza's defenses. Imani pushed them all to dig deeper, to find the emotional core of their stories, to write the scenes that frightened them most. "Your character, Alice," Imani said during one of their one-on-one sessions. "She's powerful in these book worlds, but what does she want in her real life?" Eliza hadn't considered this. Alice's adventures in literature had been enough. "Maybe," she ventured, "she wants to create her own stories, not just live in other people's." Imani smiled. "Now that's interesting. What's stopping her?" The question followed Eliza home, buzzing in her mind as she rewrote entire sections of her manuscript. Alice began to change on the page, no longer just escaping into books but learning from them, gathering courage from beloved characters to face her own antagonists. When school resumed in September, Eliza was different. Not obviously. She still preferred the library to the cafeteria, still wore her oversized sweaters and kept her head down in crowded hallways. But inside, where it mattered, something had shifted. She carried her writing notebook everywhere, no longer afraid to be seen scribbling between classes. Mackenzie and her friends still existed in Eliza's orbit, but their power had diminished. Once, when Madison knocked Eliza's notebook to the floor in biology class, Eliza simply picked it up and continued writing. The lack of reaction seemed to confuse them more than any retort could have. "What happened to you over summer?" Ms. Chun asked during their weekly writing club meeting. "Your work has expanded." Eliza considered the question. "I think I stopped being afraid of taking up space." By winter break, Eliza had completed her first draft, 230 pages of Alice's journey through books and back to herself. She printed it at the library, the weight of the manuscript substantial in her hands. That night, She wrapped it in brown paper and tied it with string, a gift to herself. Her mother noticed the change too. Over their simple Christmas dinner, she said, "You seem happier, Liz. More present." Eliza nodded. "I've been writing a book." "A book?" Her mother's eyes widened. "A whole book?" "It's not very good yet," Eliza said, then caught herself. "Actually, parts of it are really good. I'm going to make the rest better." The revision process consumed her spring semester. She took Amani's advice, ruthlessly cutting scenes that didn't move the story forward, deepening the emotional arcs, sharpening dialogue. Characters who had begun as thinly veiled versions of her bullies evolved into complex antagonists with their own fears and motivations. In April, Ms. Chen forwarded an email about a national writing competition for high school students. The grand prize, publication in an online literary journal, and a summer mentorship with a publishing editor. "You should submit, Alice," Ms. Chen urged. Eliza hesitated. Sharing her work with the workshop and writing club was one thing. Submitting it to strangers, to judges, felt like standing naked in a crowded room. That night, she opened her laptop and stared at the submission form. Her cursor hovered over the attach file button for nearly an hour before she finally clicked it. Before she could change her mind, she hit submit, then immediately closed her computer and paced her small bedroom, alternating between panic and a strange, buoyant excitement. Whatever happened, she had done it. The girl who once knelt on a bathroom floor, salvaging her drowned books, had written a novel, had shared it with the world. No one could take that away from her. Not Mackenzie, not any bully, not even her own doubts. 2 months later, when the email arrived announcing she was a finalist, Eliza read it 3 times before the words sank in. She printed it out and taped it to her mirror, next to a quote from Charlotte Bronte. "I'm just going to write because I cannot help it." Whether she won or not no longer seemed the point. The transformation had already occurred, in her manuscript, in her outlook, in herself. She had turned her pain into something beautiful, something entirely her own. For the first time in her life, Eliza felt like the protagonist of her own story. The email came on a Tuesday afternoon during summer break. Eliza was arranging roses in her aunt's flower shop when her phone buzzed. She wiped her hands on her apron before checking the notification, expecting another update from the writing competition. Instead, it was from Catherine Powell, senior editor at Luminous Press. "Dear Eliza, I was a guest judge for the Young Writers Prize and couldn't stop thinking about your manuscript. The Book Diver isn't just a finalist. It's the winner. But I'd like to discuss something beyond the standard prize package. Please call me at your earliest convenience." Eliza's hands trembled so badly she had to set the phone down. She changed the title from Alice's Adventures to The Book Diver during revisions, but the core remained the same. A girl finding strength by diving into literature and eventually writing her own story. "Aunt Jean," she called, her voice cracking. "I need to make a phone call." The conversation with Catherine Powell lasted 47 minutes. By the end, Eliza had agreed to a publishing contract, complete with an advance that made her dizzy to contemplate. "Your story has exactly what we've been looking for," Catherine explained. "It's authentic, emotional, and speaks directly to anyone who's ever felt like an outsider. With some developmental editing, I believe this could be our lead title for next spring's YA list." That night, Eliza stared at her ceiling, unable to sleep. Everything was happening so fast. 6 months of editing, cover design discussions, marketing plans, audiobook considerations, foreign rights possibilities. "They want me to write an author bio," she told her mother over breakfast, "and get professional headshots." "Me." Her mother reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "I always knew you were special, Liz. Now everyone else will know it too." The editing process was both exhilarating and terrifying. Catherine pushed her to dig even deeper into Alice's character, to make the bullying scenes more visceral, the emotional aftermath more raw. "Are you sure?" Eliza asked during one of their video calls. "It feels so exposed." "That's exactly why it works," Catherine assured her. "Readers connect with vulnerability, with truth. Your story has both." By Christmas, the final manuscript was complete. Luminous Press fast-tracked production, sensing they had something special. The marketing team created an innovative campaign centered around banned and challenged books throughout history, connecting it to Alice's journey through literature and Eliza's own experience with her books being destroyed. In February, advance reader copies went out to influencers and book bloggers. The response was immediate and overwhelming. At Bookish Rebel posted, "Just finished an arc of #TheBookDiver and I'm wrecked. This debut is going to change lives. Mark my words." At Lit Critic tweeted, "Haven't felt this way about a YA novel since The Hate U Give. #TheBookDiver isn't just a book. It's a movement." A prominent book talk creator made a tearful video about the bathroom bullying scene, sharing her own similar experience, which garnered over 2 million views in 3 days. Eliza watched it all unfold from her bedroom, alternating between disbelief and terror. These strangers were connecting with her most painful memories, finding resonance in her darkest moments. It was validating and overwhelming in equal measure. When publication day arrived in April, The Book Diver debuted at number 3 on the New York Times Young Adult Bestseller list. Luminous Press immediately ordered a second printing. Eliza's local bookstore hosted a launch event, expecting perhaps 30 people. Over 200 showed up, filling every aisle. As she approached the podium to read an excerpt, Eliza caught sight of a familiar face in the back row. Ms. Chun was there, beaming with pride. "Before I begin," Eliza said into the microphone, her voice steadier than she'd expected, "I want to thank my literature teacher, Ms. Chun, who saw something in my writing when I couldn't see it myself." The crowd applauded as Ms. Chun wiped away tears. The signing line stretched for 2 hours. Readers shared their own stories of bullying, of finding refuge in books, of struggling to find their voice. A teenage girl with purple hair whispered, "Your book made me feel brave enough to start writing my own story." As the bookstore event ended, Eliza's phone exploded with notifications. #TheBookDiver was trending. A famous actress had posted about the novel to her 60 million followers, calling it the book every young person needs right now. Within days, translation rights sold in 28 countries. Film studios began calling Catherine with adaptation offers. Morning shows requested interviews. School libraries across the country added The Book Diver to their collections, sometimes over objections from conservative parent groups who took issue with the book's unflinching portrayal of bullying and its message of self-empowerment outside traditional social hierarchies. The controversy only fueled sales. By summer, Eliza had appeared on national television, given a TED Talk about literature as sanctuary, and signed a 2-book deal for a sum that would cover her college education and beyond. During her book tour stop in Chicago, Eliza received a message request on Instagram. The profile picture looked vaguely familiar, but she couldn't place it until she read the name, Mackenzie Williams. "I don't know if you'll read this," the message began, "but I recognized myself in your book. I was horrible to you. There's no excuse. Your success made me realize how small I was being. Congratulations on everything." Eliza stared at the message for a long time before responding, "Thank you for reaching out. Alice forgives her bullies in chapter 17. I'm working on it too." That night in her hotel room, Eliza opened her laptop and began writing her second novel, about a former bully seeking redemption. Not because she owed Mackenzie anything, but because she understood now that everyone has their own story, their own pain, their own capacity for change. A year to the day after her books had been thrown in a toilet, Eliza Harper sat on a panel at the National Book Festival, discussing the phenomenal success of The Book Diver and its impact on young readers. "The most surprising thing," she told the audience, "isn't the bestseller status or the movie deal. It's that I've received over 10,000 messages from readers who say the book helped them feel less alone. That's the real success. Taking something painful and transforming it into connection." As applause filled the auditorium, Eliza thought about the girl she'd been. Silent, hiding, afraid to take up space. That girl could never have imagined this moment. But she had done one crucial thing right. She had written her truth, word by painful word, until her voice became too powerful to ignore. In the back of her mind, she could still see those books floating in toilet water, pages bleeding ink. But now that image no longer held power over her. It had become simply the first line of an extraordinary story, her own.